Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and explore the really fascinating, completely unseen structures that essentially govern our society. Whenever we walk down the street, go to work, or just chat with our neighbors, we're moving through a built environment. But I'm not just talking about physical buildings or roads here. Did you know that in many countries, justice and correctional facilities make up some of the absolute largest footprints of public infrastructure? We're talking about the invisible blueprints derived directly from our source text today, the architecture of correction and control. It's a super compelling way to look at how human behavior is managed. And by mapping this out together, we're going to understand exactly how the walls of our societal norms are actually held up.
But before we even look at the blueprint itself, we really have to ask ourselves a massive question. What is the true purpose of our justice system? I mean, is it simply to lock people away? Is it to heal them? Or is it something much more structural? Think about it. When we think of architecture, we think of intention, right? Every door, every hallway, every locked gate has a distinct purpose. And the text we're unpacking today suggests that our justice system is exactly the same. It's a meticulously engineered framework built to achieve a very specific type of societal order.
So, here is our structural floor plan for today. First, the architecture of control. Second, criminal justice discipline. Third, systems of punishment. Fourth, the rehabilitation approach. And finally, number 5, modern correctional practices.
Moving into Section 1, the architecture of control, or the blueprints of society.
Now, what's really wild to think about is that even if you never, ever see the inside of a correctional facility, this framework still completely dictates your daily life. Just think about the invisible lines drawn around what we consider acceptable behavior. Why do we instinctively form an orderly line at the grocery store? Or why do you automatically stop at a red light on a totally empty street at 3 a.m.? The source material emphasizes these overarching frameworks. This architecture of control governs discipline on a massive, macro level. It's literally the reason societies function at all, rather than just collapsing into chaos. This blueprint is designed to keep the structure of civilization standing by establishing very clear, very rigid boundaries that we all just implicitly navigate every single day.
All right, Section 2, criminal justice discipline, which is all about laying the foundation. So, a quick heads up on the word discipline here. In this context, discipline isn't just a parent scolding a child or, a personal habit like trying to wake up early. As our source defines it, criminal justice discipline is a foundational systemic framework designed to manage societal order and enforce boundaries. Think of it as the concrete poured into the ground long before any walls are actually put up. Without this baseline agreement of what discipline looks like at a state or national level, you simply cannot enforce those boundaries we just talked about. It is the absolute essential groundwork of the entire correctional architecture. Which brings us to Section 3, systems of punishment, or the punitive mechanics. Looking at this objectively, we can see the exact mechanics of how a punishment-based system actually operates to enforce control. The source text identifies this as a distinct structural mechanism that focuses entirely on punitive measures. Basically, if you break the boundary, the architecture is structurally designed to penalize you. We're talking about tangible examples here, like mandatory minimum sentences, heavy financial fines, or solitary confinement. It executes discipline directly as a consequence. Imagine a structural failsafe in a building, right? If way too much weight is placed on a beam, an alarm sounds. In society, if a law is broken, the system of punishment triggers a direct, penalizing consequence to reestablish the weight and balance of that societal order. Now for a different approach. Section 4, the rehabilitation approach, remodeling behavior. So if punishment is that immediate alarm bell consequence, rehabilitation actively attempts to reshape the outcomes. Drawn straight from our source text, this approach focuses entirely on changing behavior. If we stick with our architectural analogy for a second, if a wall in a house is structurally unsound, a punishment system might just board it up or isolate it so it can't harm the rest of the house. Rehabilitation, however, is the really difficult work of going in, assessing the psychological and systemic damage, and remodeling that wall so it can safely bear weight once again. Out in the real world, this looks like mandatory job training programs, intensive addiction counseling, or educational courses inside correctional facilities. It's a completely different blueprint for dealing with the exact same breach of societal boundaries. Putting these two side by side is absolutely crucial because it lets us neutrally weigh the differing fundamental philosophies driving criminal justice today. On the one side, we've got the execution of punitive discipline, that direct penalty. And on the other, we have remodeling behavior, a systemic, psychological goal.
Now, the source text presents these not necessarily as enemies, but as the two primary, distinct methods of maintaining that overarching architecture of correction. Some systems lean really heavily on the left pillar, using strict penalization to maintain order. Others lean way over to the right, using psychological remodeling. And most modern structures, well, they attempt to bear the weight of society by trying to balance both.
Let's look at how this plays out. Section 5, Modern Correctional Practices, the final structure in action.
So how is this overarching architecture applied every single day? It follows a very specific flow. First, a baseline of criminal justice discipline is established. The rules are set. Next, when a rule is inevitably broken, the system has to weigh the response, punishment versus rehabilitation. How do we respond structurally to this crack in the wall? Finally, that decision is executed through daily correctional practices. This right here is the living, breathing building. It's the day-to-day operations of the courts, the parole boards, the correction officers, and the counselors. It is the source text's architecture actively functioning in real time, managing human behavior through this exact step-by-step structural flow.
Bringing it all back to the title of our source text, the architecture of correction and control, we really must recognize that this isn't just dry academic jargon. It's a deliberately engineered framework designed to govern human behavior. Whether we are discussing the foundational discipline, the punitive walls, or the rehabilitative remodeling, every single piece of this system is intentionally designed. And by understanding these concepts not just as a bunch of random laws, but as a deliberate architectural blueprint, we honestly become much more informed inhabitants of the society we live in.
So, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question to mull over. How does this invisible architecture shape the society you live in? Seriously, the next time you see a news story about criminal justice or read about a new law being passed, I want you to think about these foundational concepts. Ask yourself, is this a mechanism of punishment, or is it a tool for rehabilitation? How exactly is it enforcing the boundaries of our shared blueprint? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep questioning the structures around you, and as always, never stop learning.